All right, welcome back to another exciting episode of Auburn Online's Tiger Bytes, the podcast where we feature cutting edge teaching ideas from all across campus. Today we have the pleasure of having Brian Connelly with us. He's the Luck Eminent Scholar in the Department of Management and Entrepreneurship in the Harbert College of Business. Thanks for being here.
So glad to be here, Dave. Thanks for
Awesome.
inviting me.
So normally I go hat free, but today in your honor, I'm wearing
gracious.
an Eagles Super Bowl champions hat because you are a well-known Giants fan.
In fact, I am. Unfortunately, it's not a great time to be a Giants fan.
Not a great. Yeah. So I saw a statistic recently. Did you know that the last Eagles coach to have a losing record against the Giants was in the early 1980s?
Is that right?
Yeah.
Yes, back when we were going to their games.
Back when I had a full head of hair. Wanted to start out talking about what brought you to Auburn. You've been here since 2008.
That's right. Yeah, my first faculty assignment.
Yeah, and so, a lot of people, including myself, my first faculty job, I stayed 6 years and then moved on for greener pastures. You've been here 15?
Yeah.
Or no,
more,
17.
Right. Yeah,
17 years.
Yeah.
So what keeps you at Auburn? I happen to know, because we're friends, that you get a lot of calls from other schools, but you stick with us. You're still here.
Yeah, we just really love it here. It's been a great place for us. You were a big reason why we came here. You've been the face of the management department for a long time, now the management and entrepreneurship department. And so you were a big draw, but boy, oh boy, what's happened with the business school since over the past decade or so has really been remarkable. It's just grown in prestige and stature and just literally grown. It's a great place to be part of. I think what's been really important for I and my family is the culture and climate here. And you talk about organizational culture in your textbook, and doggone if it's not really a thing here at Auburn. They talk about the Auburn family, and a lot of schools have a great organizational culture, but here it's really embedded, and we really appreciate that. It's something that we love about the campus and the community here at Auburn.
Well, one of the things I really admire about you and Cora, your wife, is you take full advantage of all of the cultural amenities, season basketball tickets, season football tickets, tickets to the Goose Center.
That's right.
So,
yeah. We love the arts. Yeah.
All the stuff that a college town has to offer.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, college towns have a rich cultural offering.
So you've developed an online strategic management class.
Yeah.
Could you talk a little bit to start off here about what exactly a strategic management class is all about? Because many of our listeners and watchers won't know.
Right. Oh, and Dave, I'm so excited about this online offering because at the business school, the business school's big now. We have over 7,000 students, and every one of them has to take a strategic management class. It's a requirement in order to graduate from the business school. So it's so nice to have that available online. And strategic management is it's really putting business students in the catbird seat, in the CEO's seat, so to speak, and seeing what it's like to run an organization and deal with the trade-offs that CEOs have to deal with.
So most people will never be a CEO.
Yeah, that's true.
So why should they care about strategic management? By the way, this is a question I've had to answer for the last 30 years, so I'm enjoying asking it of you.
Yeah, that's right. Well, yeah, and it's a fair question. But if you think about it, I think our business students are exposed to a lot of things that people in organizations are exposed to. So, for example, we have a great accounting program that's putting people in the Big Four accounting companies, and all of those students need to take a marketing class, right? Not because they're going to work in marketing, but because they need to understand marketing and what the people in the marketing department are doing. And the same is true with supply chain management and operations and the other functions of an organization. And so there is a sense in which it's important for even those who are not going to be at the top of an organization to understand and appreciate what the people at the top of the organization have to do, the trade-offs that they make, the difficult decisions that they have to make. One of the things I heard from my executive MBAs when they take this strategic management course is that they didn't understand until they had the course how difficult it was to make resource allocation decisions, for example, because it seems easy when you're just looking from the outside. It's like, oh, why are they running out of fuzzy baby toys, at Christmas time? Why don't they just make more? And it turns out if you want to make more of something, what are you going to say no to that you're going to make less of? Or what decisions did you have to make 6 months ago so that you could be... And so it's really helpful for people to understand and appreciate what strategic leaders do. And I think there's a flip side to this coin too, is that while a lot of people won't be CEOs of publicly traded organizations, they might be strategic leaders in organizations that touch their lives. A lot of people will start new businesses themselves or be a part of a small business, and they might end up in strategic leadership faster that way, or perhaps they're volunteering or engaging with an organization that they're leading. And a lot of these principles apply.
Sure. I mean, you could easily be the president of Kiwanis and use the same sort of
great example,
tools. You're also the president of your life. You're the CEO of your life. And so a lot of the tools that we develop in the strategic management class can help you with decisions like, should I buy a new car or a used car?
Right. Great example. Yeah.
Some very fundamental life elements that we all need to deal with.
It really is. And, when we start out the class talking about establishing a vision and a mission and a goal and a set of goals for an organization, and that's something that, can be applied at the individual level as well.
Yeah, absolutely. So how does the strategic management course relate to your personal research interests? You've had sort of a meteoric rise as a scholar in the strategic management field.
Yeah. In terms of the research is very important in our line of work. And, like a lot of professors, I kind of got into this gig because I loved teaching. And I thought, I could do this for a living. And then you get underway and you realize, generating knowledge is actually really interesting as well. And so I spent a lot of my early career on developing some research in the corporate governance arena. And corporate governance means things like boards of directors and shareholders. It's really about the mechanisms in place that are designed to control an organization's behaviors. And that's, of course, a big part of running an organization is kind of answering the question of what are the guardrails around me? What's keeping me from just taking this thing in that direction or this direction? It turns out that strategic leaders need to respond to a board of directors. They have shareholders. They have other stakeholders like customers, suppliers, the communities in which they operate. And all of these things serve as governance mechanisms on the kinds of decisions that one makes when you're running an organization.
So what prompted you to embrace the idea of taking a course that traditionally is done in person and put it online, particularly in terms of, like, historically, the strategic management course would involve a lot of case studies.
Yeah, right.
Where you have the traditional, almost Hollywood scenario of cold calling on students and drilling them about what this company should do and why, and having them justify what they're thinking the company should do. And so what was the impetus to try to take that sort of environment and come up with an online equivalent?
Yeah. Well, certainly I think the changing nature of the world was important there. Is that, like I said, we've got thousands of business students that need to take this class. And they're engaging the world in different ways, especially since COVID, where, you've got a lot of people working full time. We have a lot of student athletes at Auburn. And when this is a required course, it's really handy for them to have an online design mechanism to
Right.
take this, to afford them the flexibility to be able to do some of the things that they wouldn't be able to do otherwise. But like you said, it changes the nature of the course a little bit, because, historically, when you're teaching this class and you're in a classroom, over the course of an hour and 20 minutes, however long the class, a given class is, you can engage in conversation that will evolve, and it'll be really interesting and dynamic. But you don't, in an online environment, you don't have that hour and a half that's happening because it's not entirely synchronous.
Right. People are coming in and out
Mm.
of the
Right.
course.
Exactly. Yeah. And so one of the things that I've done for this particular adaptation of a course to the online environment is I've been really example centric. And so a lot of and I use your textbook for this course and always have. And even in the online version, we're still using your textbook. But a lot of the principles that we're studying from your textbook, I'm really using a lot of examples to help give them a hook on which to hang this knowledge.
Yeah. I mean, talking about that book is probably beyond the scope of this discussion, but I did just want to note that one of our goals in putting that book together was every time we introduce a concept, there's an example that illustrates it. And I think that's
Yes.
helpful to students,
Yeah.
putting some meat on abstract ideas.
Yeah. Yeah. And one of the advantages of an online environment is that we can move even faster than your textbook moves. You come out with a new edition, every couple of years?
Yeah, every couple of years.
Yeah. Whereas the online class changes every semester.
Right.
And so the discussion posts, I mean, you, for example, use Tesla as an example in your book. I mean, we're talking about what happened at Tesla last week.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
And so super fun that way.
So tell me about the podcast that you've included in your course, Strategically Speaking, which you generated through Notebook LM.
Yeah.
And I think is super cool. And I've started using it in my courses
Oh,
too.
good. Yeah. It's fun to be thinking about AI, and there's different ways that AI touches a course. One is that we have to deal with, okay, how are organizations going to manage AI and leverage AI? But another is using AI in a teaching environment. And so what happened here was that I had some students come by my office and say, "Hey, look, I'm studying a lot, and I'm going through all your material, and I'm still getting clobbered by the quizzes. And so what are some things that we could do to help with that?" And so we created this podcast that it's AI generated. But what's unique about the podcast is it's just based on the material in that given module. So there's nothing superfluous in the podcast. And what this did for students is it gave them an alternate mechanism to study the exact same material. And so now you've got the online environment, you're reading, you're getting examples. Sometimes there'll be videos embedded in there. But now you've got, before you take the quiz, you can just pop this podcast in and get a review of the entire module in a very engaging manner. And we've gotten some really positive feedback directly from students and through course evaluations where they turn this podcast on, listen to it, and they're walking across campus. And by the time they get to the other side of campus, they're prepared to take the quiz. And so that was really helpful.
I'm really eager to see where Notebook LM can go because at present, there's only two voices. You don't get any choices about, how old they are or genders or any of that kind of stuff.
Right.
There's a male voice and a female voice. They both kind of sound like they're white and in their 30s, so it'd be nice to have some variety there. And then in terms of the prompts that you give it, you're limited to 500 characters.
Yes. Yeah.
So I have to think in the near future, both of those things are going to change. You're going to have multiple people that you can choose from.
Right.
And you're going to be able to give it a lot more guidance in terms of how they engage with each other.
Yeah, and I think on on creating videos as well as on the horizon. Right now, you can sort of do that, but you kind of have to be institutional because it's so processing intensive that it's very expensive to create customized videos. But, I think it used to be that would say, oh, I'll see when, you say something like, let's see where this is headed. And, we were thinking along the lines of years, and suddenly
Right.
we're thinking along the lines of
Weeks.
months and
Yeah.
weeks.
Absolutely.
Right.
So going back in time, you had a corporate career before you started doing
I did, yeah, a
academia.
couple of decades in industry, working
Yeah.
for some Fortune 500 companies, yeah.
And I guess the most interesting story to me that you've told me over the years is that you were actually present when the idea for direct TV, satellite
Oh, yeah.
TV kind of arose spontaneously.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
if you could talk a little bit about that, I think people would probably be interested.
That was an interesting story. I was in satellite telecommunications before I was in academia. And I was doing international business development for satellite telecommunications in Asia because, in Asia, you don't have much telecommunications infrastructure. And so you put a satellite in and suddenly everybody can talk to each other. And as I was putting those in, I had a customer that had a particular requirement. So as one does, I walked down to the lab to say, hey, I wonder if you could implement this thing for my customer. And so this is like the early 90s. And I walked down to the lab, and doggone it, if there isn't an engineer in there watching television through our satellite. And I mean, he's just, you got to understand, he's got breadboards everywhere with wires all over the place and this giant electronic system, but he's watching daytime television. And sure enough, that did not go unnoticed very long before the CEO of the company, Hughes, got wind of that and said, wait a second, we can watch television through our satellite system?
A little light bulb went
A
off.
light bulb went off. And so Hughes pretty quickly realized that, this is bigger than just Hughes satellite systems. And so they initially created a subsidiary called DirecTV. But, once that started taking off, they spun DirecTV off out of Hughes to make its own money and be a for-profit entity.
So looking ahead to the future, what do you think the strategic management class might look like in 5 or 10 years? Will there be a lot of hybrid formats where people are learning online part of the time? Will there be more and more artificial intelligence? What do you think is going to happen?
Yeah. I think that'll change in at least two ways. One is the content will change. We're seeing different entities become increasingly important. All the CEOs of all the major companies signed on to a resolution a few years ago that said we're not just about shareholders, but we've got to look at a lot of parties that are interested in the outcomes of our organization. And so I think that's going, stakeholder management will be increasingly important. And I think shareholders are becoming more important in the life of an organization. Shareholders used to just buy and sell and hope for the best, but now they're engaged in organizations and they're changing. I mean, you talk about names like Carl Icahn and Bill Ackman, and they're engaged with organizations. And so they've become increasingly important to strategic leaders. And then, like you said, I think the way we teach is changing. It's becoming more hands-on. This is a class that it's very much not me speaking to individuals and imparting knowledge. It's
conversation.
It's conversation. It's a skills development. It's a skills class. And all the more going forward.
I actually think that class is kind of in line with the traditional, more liberal arts approach to education that you'd see like in a philosophy class.
Yeah, great way to think about it.
Yeah, I mean, it's not just, spreadsheets and that sort of stuff. It's thinking about what's important to companies, what's important to customers, priorities and trade-offs and all those mental skills and mental philosophies that people need to develop.
Yeah. A lot of times there's not just one right answer to some of the questions that we're asking.
Right.
And a lot of it is about making decisions with imperfect information.
Right. And hoping for the best.
Yeah.
Well, when you interview Brian Connelly, you don't have to hope for the best. You get the best.
Oh,
and I
that's
appreciate
kind.
you being here on Tiger Bytes today. That's all we have. And thanks for being here.
Love it. Thanks for having me.
Thank you for joining us for this episode of Tiger Bytes. We hope you enjoyed the conversation and gained some valuable insights. Please like, subscribe, and share this podcast with your friends and colleagues. You can find us on all major platforms. Keep learning, keep growing, and we'll see you next time on Tiger Bytes.